Hello and welcome to Higher Automation, a podcast brought to you by Hai Robotics. I'm your host, Michelle Dawn Mooney. Today, we're talking about efficiency elevated inside the automated warehouse of retail titans, how the world's biggest retailers are reshaping their warehouse operations with goods to person systems. If you've ever wondered how retail giants achieve unparalleled efficiency in inventory management and order fulfillment, well, today we are exploring one key secret behind their success: goods to person automation. Some of the world's biggest retailers are leveraging goods to person solutions like automated storage and retrieval systems, or ASRS, to optimize their fulfillment workflows, maximize efficiency, and ultimately stay ahead and stay flexible in today's competitive landscape. Joining us are automation experts Sumit Tiwary, Director of GreyOrange, and Brian Reinhart, Chief Revenue Officer at Hai Robotics, to explore how exactly top retailers are using these systems and the transformative impacts on their operations. So thank you so much, Sumit and Brian, for joining me today. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me. For us.
Yep.
And I want to start off with Sumit. Can you give us a brief bio followed by Brian so people can learn a little bit more about you before we jump into this conversation?
Sure. So I'm a director at GreyOrange, and I head the Certified Ranger Network business for GreyOrange. Certified Ranger Network business is a collection of fulfillment robots and agents from different companies. And we use our Grey Matter software, which is the primary product for the company, to deliver meaningful fulfillment via these robotic agents to our customer.
Yeah, mine will probably sound not as smart as usually happens when I'm in the same room with Summit. But my name is Brian Reinhart. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Hai Robotics. At Hai, we manufacture autonomous case handling robotic systems, which is a mobile goods to person ASRS platform. We leverage our partnership with GreyOrange and their core software product, Grey Matter, to really kind of combine a best in breed G2P solution. And I think, as we're going to talk about today, what we've been able to see is, a lot of success in top of market. We've done a lot of, kind of marketing and information sharing around proof of concept, mid market. And I think what we're really excited about is how the tech has expanded the top of market. So exciting times for Hai Robotics and GreyOrange. I think we're excited to get into it.
Yeah, we're all excited. Well, Sumit, did you have something to follow up on that?
No, I just wanted to echo what Brian was saying. I think as a partner and the time where we are in the industry, it's pretty exciting time.
Absolutely. An exciting conversation ahead. So let's jump into that. Let's start by painting a picture of goods to person automation in a modern fulfillment center. Sumit, what does that look like right now?
So, goods to person system in last 5 to 6 years has really evolved. Means earlier it was that the goods to person system was being used for one of the processes in the warehouse, but now what customers are looking for are real fulfillment results, where the real fulfillment results are coming in. It's not about just putting a robot and kind of finding efficiency in one of the process. What they are looking for end to end process, efficiency over there, and especially with HAI system and what they call as their modular ASRS system or the ACR system, we have figured out that that's a disruptive technology combined with gray matter. And the goods to person system is started with track to person system. We saw fixed ASRS system which were there, but there were a lot of limitations in fixed ASRS systems related to infrastructure, related to order processing, different kind of bin digging, allocating something in terms of what inventory is there, not being able to be very agile depending upon how market and landscape is changing. And that's where we figured out that Hai has really disrupted by bringing the modular ASRS system, which combined with gray matter has been able to, I can say comfortably, has been able to give 4x to 6x efficiencies to customer, depending upon how their operational complexity is. And more on that, we have been able to work on giving the real results. Means we are running warehouses for large retailers, as Brian said, and we are seeing the results being delivered over there. So that's how I see that, being one of the automation and one of the processes to gray matter orchestrating end to end, and Hai being part of it, it has really changed the entire goods to person landscape, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree, Summit. I think what you talk about end to end in operations is really the exciting advancement in the space. Traditionally when you heard the term ASRS, you would kind of think a block of automation, or as sometimes coined in the industry, an island of automation. And it was a technology that solved a problem. And I think what's exciting now is that the technology is solving multiple problems. And in the most advanced systems, a combination of technologies are solving multiple problems to kind of result in that end-to-end solutioning that Summit talks about. And that's really kind of the modernization, right? Again, the tech has advanced. There's been new types of technologies, new companies, new things enter the market space. But I really think the modernization is in the deployment of that tech versus the tech itself. And that really goes to the operational side of the business. I just, as kind of a precursor for the rest of the conversation, you know, you'll hear goods to person or G2P, ASRS, AMR, and we kind of joke it's an alphabet soup of of acronyms, and it can be a little confusing. And I think at least for the purposes of this conversation, when you think of ASRS, it's a much broader term. It's automated storage and retrieval, and so there's the more traditional fixed infrastructure ASRSs, but also there's the more modern flexible ones, which tend to lend themselves more to AMRs, which would stand for automated mobile robot. And so the AMR, again, it's usually a kind of more lightweight, more flexible, easier to deploy, maybe doesn't have some of the capabilities of the ASRS, but they're all in kind of the same world of solving problems and making customers more efficient.
Well, retailers have relied on automated storage and retrieval systems, or ASRS, talking about the alphabet soup, right, to manage their inventory and order picking operations for many years. But more recently, you've seen some of the biggest names in retail turn to ASRS solutions that are more flexible and adaptable than their predecessors. So, Brian, what is driving this shift?
Yeah, I think again, it's kind of what Summit referred to earlier. It's a larger focus on operations versus just technology, but it's also an evolution of the technology. And so when you're talking about your Fortune 50 retailers, the volume that's going through these distribution centers is just so substantial, tens of thousands of lines per hour. And traditionally, the only technologies that could handle that type of volume were, your more kind of, again, rigid, but still high speed, high density ASRS systems. You talk about things like shuttle systems and that nature. And so they were able to handle the volume, but there was a long standing set of requirements on that distribution center and that operation to make that ASRS actually work. Now we're seeing more flexible technologies that can handle the volume, do it in a dense fashion, but don't have all of those kind of high level requirements on the distribution center or the operation. And so these retailers, they're able to have their cake and eat it too. And so, traditionally, let's think inside the warehouse. You've got a big block of an ASRS. There's inbound where we're receiving product, maybe on a pallet, we're depalletizing it, we're moving it all around. There's a whole process to get it into that ASRS. Then we pick the product. Now we have to do some type of, pack, ship operation. There's a whole process downstream. And so the kind of traditional warehouse had that big block, that heartbeat with a bunch of things going around it. The more flexible technologies are able to kind of incorporate all that into one holistic system. And so no longer do you have 20 different types of automation doing their one thing. You can really kind of reduce the number of technologies in, leverage the flexibility of the technologies you are doing while still getting the volume and density requirements that you need. And so I think that's why you've seen that shift to flexibility. It allows the operation to be much more streamlined, much more efficient. It de-risks the operation. And it also, introduces kind of new price points that are much more appetizing to these retailers.
Okay, so it all sounds great, but I always like to use that old phrase, the proof is in the pudding. So let's talk about real world use cases. Summit, can you give us any examples of how your retail customers are leveraging goods to person automation to stay competitive? And then more importantly, what results are they seeing?
Yeah, so I can talk about a couple of customers. One of the largest retailer on the planet is using Grey Matter and Hai's ACR system. And I can comfortably say that using our technology, they have been able to ensure that 97% of their e-commerce orders are being delivered next day to the customer. And along with that, they have been able to do almost, I would say, 60% of saving, and that too in such a vast storage. As Brian said, that there are tens and thousands of inventory coming in and going out on a daily basis, and maintaining that storage, doing that storage optimization, reducing the footprint of their storage, ensuring that if an order is there, defining those storage strategy, defining those inventory strategy, which tote to bring in, which order to bring in, which order to open. That has been where Grey Matter, along with Hai, has ensured that these operational complexities are being solved, and the customer has been able to directly pick to the box. So reducing all the other complexities which are there, and directly ship that box to the customer. So things, innovative like this has really helped them in terms of increasing their customer satisfaction, um, but reducing the dependency on the sporadic manpower availability which we are seeing, and other complexities which has really led them to get the meaningful result which everyone wanted, and as Brand said, has really made it cost effective, cost attractive for them. The other example which I'll give is for a fashion retailer, where we saw that there was it was a omni channel warehouse where there was retail and e-commerce going on at both level, with the ACR system, which is above, which goes up to 39 feet from Hai Robotics. We have been able to kind of do their cartonization strategy, planogram based picking, all those complex procedure. And the biggest challenge for a fashion retailer is, how are you going to replan an inventory which is coming from return? How do you prioritize a return which is coming from retail versus how you are going to prioritize a return which is coming via e-commerce? Or even how the entire replenishment is happening? What is the complexity of priority which you are planning on that? And even if you are shipping, how do you ship, and how do you make that a strategy that you ship minimum air possible in the truck, so that you are utilizing the maximum space which is there? So all these complexities where Grey Matter has been orchestrating, and the storage efficiency and the complementary availability of the hardware to kind of flex based upon how we want, because high system uses, they can do cases, they can do different type of totes. When we put our goods to person system below it, we can handle a very flexible amount of inventory. We are not dependent upon a single tote type of inventory or box type of inventory. You can use different size of inventory, right from a home improvement company where there are large mattresses being put, or toilet seats being put, or diapers and all which are there. So it we cover almost all the inventory size because of our flexibility, and we operate in the same grid. So that kind of really makes it easier for customer, with lot of options on the ground, and not being dependent upon multiple system. The other thing which we bring over here is the massive scale at which we can operate. Means at this point of time, deploying 200 robots, 100 robots, or Grey Matter operates 700, 800 robots in a field, where each of the robot is available for every operator station. That's pretty massive advantage if you see, which brings in very differentiated result. So net net, what we are talking about, if we compared both the scenarios, or wherever we have deployed with High, we have seen 4x to 6x efficiencies. We have seen 60% reduction in storage which is there. As I said, the shipping times have reduced for the 97% of the goods to next day. And along with that, there have been ROIs which has significantly reduced, making them it as a very lucrative OPEX system, rather than considering it as a CAPEX system, which might have resulted into ROI over the next 5-7 years, than bringing it into months.
Summit mentioned that 97%, and I want to hit it one more time because it is such an outstanding number. If you go back 10 years, maybe, when Amazon was really kind of taking over the consumer market, there were a lot of retailers that didn't make it. I think of some folks in the electronic business, apparel, just general consumer goods, that were too late to adapt and adopt. And they weren't listening to the buyers, which said, we want it now and we want it, cheap. It was better, faster, cheaper, pick two. Amazon was doing, nope, you can have all three. And so what the really savvy retailers did, the ones that Sumit's referencing here, they looked inward and they weren't looking at their price points or their marketing campaigns. They were looking at their distribution network. And the ones who adopted technologies like gray matter and Hai Robotics were able to really kind of catch up quickly. And they did it in a matter of a year or two. And I think what Sumit alluded to is the scale at which they did it at. There's systems where gray matter is running, almost 1,000 robots that were deployed in under a year, right? That allowed them to honestly survive those first couple years and now thrive. And so now what you're seeing is these retailers that, 10 years ago were like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with Amazon? They're actually kind of not only competing, but even beating some of those SLAs and KPIs that Amazon's provided for the market. And when you talk about 97% next day fulfillment, that's outstanding. That because you're not talking about two people in the middle of a metro area. You're talking about tens of thousands of orders across urban, rural, suburban areas that these DCs are now fulfilling. And I think, it's a testament again to companies like GreyOrange and Hai that we've been able to serve these clients in such a fashion.
I think it's very important to talk on a scale which Brian very well emphasized, that this combination of this solution is answer for a lot of people who are kind of being challenged by Amazon. So a lot of companies who are being challenged by Amazon and the next day delivery, or I would put it differently, the kind of expectation which Amazon has put in terms of 4-hour delivery, next day delivery. If a company is really looking forward to meet those expectations set by Amazon for their own customers, I think these are the kind of solutions. A combination of Hai and GreyOrange is the solution for them to kind of meet those expectations and be on the line with customer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, with that ease of ordering, I can speak from that side of things. There also, as you mentioned, Summit, the returns, because we're seeing such high return rates now because people are ordering so frequently and maybe it's something they didn't really need or didn't fit and they're kind of ordering too quickly. And I felt like you were looking at me because I do have something to return today. So I fall in that category. So Brian, what is your advice for retailers? They're hearing all of this. It sounds great. They may be looking to automate their storage and fulfillment operations. Can you share some key considerations or best practices for them moving forward?
Yeah, of course, right. I think the first is understanding what your end result needs to be, right? And then you can kind of work backwards from that. I see so many businesses get themselves into trouble by saying, we have this problem, let's throw this automation at it. And you solve today's problem, but not tomorrow's, right? And so then when it's time to expand or bring returns into the facility or turn that DC into omni-channel, it's, oh no, our technology can't handle it. And so if you start at kind of your end goal, your 3, 5, 10-year roadmap and work your way back, I think you'll be positioned much better for success. And I kind of want to use an example of, again, one of these large traditional big box retailers that's really gone more e-com and omni-channel. Again, meeting those requirements of Amazon, it had to be done quickly, right? You couldn't tell your consumers, oh, we'll get you that product next day. In 2 years, let us build our DC network. And so what they did that first year was, make the most of whatever they had. And that can be things like pick assist AMR robots, adding pick modules, right? Labor-based solutions where you're just throwing people at the problem. Then again, maybe some automation, like I mentioned, like a pick assist AMR, and that solved today's problem. And then as they evolved, okay, we want to get a little bit more volume out of this DC, but we don't want to completely overhaul it. That's where you get to kind of rack to person solutions, right? That's kind of the next evolution. And I think what we've seen the last couple of years is, okay, those are great, but we really need that shuttle level volume, that kind of grid ASRS level density. But we also want to deploy it in the manner that we did these AMRs and these rack to persons, right? We want it quick. We want it to be non-disruptive. We want really good price points. And I think that's the new kind of thing in the market, right? When you talk about tote to person, ACR, mobile flexible ASRSs, they're really able to check all three of those boxes simultaneously. And so the savvy companies knew this is where they were going to end up, but they had a journey to get there, right? You still had to stay flexible in kind of how you were fulfilling those orders yesterday. And I think now what we're seeing is kind of that end game adoption in the scale at which the systems are being deployed, the frequency at which they're being deployed, I think is really helping these retailers. The last note that I would make here, kind of in terms of best practices too, is not just planning for the future, but being able to deviate and adjust from that plan should it change, right? If you had a plan to go hub DC into micro fulfillment, but now micro maybe can't be cost justified. If you had a plan to go strict retail, strict e-com, but now you need to go omni, how can your tech adapt to that? Can it physically be picked up and moved? Can it handle a wide range of data, or is it really fixed to kind of a narrow Pareto? Answering those questions early is really allowing folks to future-proof these plans that they're putting in today.
Exactly. So can't believe it, at the end of our time here almost. So
Time flies.
last question, what role does a collaboration between integrator partners like GreyOrange and automation providers like Hai Robotics play in the successful deployment of ASRS solutions? And then what does the future look like?
So I think it's very exciting. Both the companies, at least, we complement each other very well. Uh, Both the companies, I see there is equal passion for making sure that customer is becoming successful. Both the companies, being very young, are very adaptive in terms of market challenges which are coming up. Means if you see High's trajectory, they came up with first ACR, they realized what the market needed, and they kind of kept on iterating, and now they have this system 3. Similarly, how GreyOrange did was that we started with one robot, we started multi-agent orchestration, and now we are making sure that all robots are able to run in the field. And there is result-driven robotics, not only robotics, with the multiple fleet of robot which we have available to kind of make sure that the fulfillment from inbound to outbound is happening. And the other thing which I've found that we have these global coverages in terms of our support system. The supply chain is pretty much distributed. So it becomes very easy for us to make sure that customer is very well supported. For us, it's not High's problem or GreyOrange's problem. One of us or GreyOrange is making sure that we are owning the KPI for the customer. We have our back-to-back agreement, or I can say that Brian has supported us in all way possible to make sure that we are one company in front of customer, and that really helps in terms of making sure that customer is successful. Because we know that at a lot of times it happens that when customer decides to go with a certain process flow, they trust on us to be an expert. And both the companies, GreyOrange and High, make sure that we are making sure that we understand customer processes a lot well. It's not just for selling the customer and making sure that we are getting the order. When we sell, actually we challenge each other very well in terms of simulation result, or in terms of making sure how the design is being done, that is this the real solution, is this the real ROI which is coming to customer. And it does not stop till sales. We ensure that our customer success is working throughout the customer, and there is constant improvement which is coming in. So that GreyOrange as the gray matter orchestrator and as the integrator, and HAI being technology provider, it makes it a very win-win. And I would say for all the operators, warehouse supervisors, it gives them a good night's sleep. Because for warehouse operators, if pick before time is not happening, if they've not been able to hit their timeline, I still remember talking to warehouse manager, and he was saying that his job is on the X every day. So we make sure that we are bringing that work-life balance, we are bringing that happiness, and we are bringing that confidence in them, that they can focus on the other part of the business, whereas both GreyOrange and HAI is taking care of their background, or their backbone of the business in terms of warehouse.
Yeah, I mean, as usual, Summit pretty much nailed it. He took all the good points. But you mentioned one thing there, Summit, that I do want to reiterate. Right, we talk a lot about the technology and the complementary nature of kind of the gray matter, GreyOrange offering, and Hai Robotics. I think the market's pretty well aware of that. But I would say the challenging of one another that I think you hit on is what is really elevating the partnership. There is an accountability that the organizations are holding one another to, that is really elevating both of us, which in turn benefits the customer. right? There's a lot of behind the scenes conversations between Sumit and myself, our other executives, our implementation teams, our engineering teams, to ensure that we are doing the absolute best we can. It means that you now have two large organizations that aren't resting on their laurels. They're not getting complacent. You're continuing to push one another to be the best that we can be. And I think, again, that results in an ultimate system delivery that, like Sumit said, our customers can rely on. And then in terms of what the future looks like, I think similarly, we would push GreyOrange to say, hey, where do we go next? How can we go bigger? How can we be more successful? How can we take 99.99 accuracy and make it 99.999? And GreyOrange would say to us, how can the bots move faster? How can we get denser? How can we become even more flexible? And so it's industry experts taking the feedback of our collective customers and really pushing and holding one another accountable for projects today, but also technology in the future. And I think that's what's really exciting about the partnership, and having a blast building it out with these guys. I'll say that.
I know a lot of people listening are probably going to want more information. Maybe they have questions. Where can they go? Any resources? Where can we send them?
Yeah, I mean, you could go down, the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland with content and resources. I always say the best place to start is go to the website. That's the easiest way to get a hold of us. That's the easiest way that you could talk to a resource or a technical expert to answer any of your questions. So it's just simple, hairobotics.com, HAIrobotics.com.
So you can contact GreyOrange at www.greyorange.com. Feel free to shoot an email to sales@greyorange.com. I'll not take a specific name. Reaching out to either this email ID or website will make sure that whosoever you are reaching out is ensuring your win in the market.
Sumit Tiwary, Director at GreyOrange, and Brian Reinhart, Chief Revenue Officer at Hai Robotics. Thank you so much for your time. Great conversation. Hopefully, a lot of other people will want to join in and see the results that both of you are seeing. So thank you for being with me today.
Thanks for having us. It was fun.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you for having us. Thanks a lot.
My pleasure. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening to Higher Automation, a podcast brought to you by Hai Robotics. And of course, you can visit hairobotics.com for more information there, and be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you can hear more engaging conversations like the one you heard today. Thanks again for joining us. Once again, I'm your host, Michelle Dawn Mooney, and we hope to connect with you on another podcast soon.